The story starts with two children, Xiaofan and Jinyu, in a village who are sword fighting with each other. Our main lead, Xiaofan, is losing repeatedly to Jinyu, but he persists in trying to beat him. Suddenly, Jinyu's eyes turn red and he tries to kill Xiaofan. Witnessing this, other children run away. At that moment, the village monk arrives and applies pressure points on Jinyu's body, bringing back his consciousness. Following this, Jinyu is bewildered by Xiaofan's condition. The monk orders both children to return home as a storm is approaching. In response to this, they both leave. However, a strange evil man arrives and attempts to take Jinyu away. Observing this, the monk rescues Jinyu from the stranger, but an insect enters the monk's body during the process through Jinyu's hand. Subsequently, the strange man attacks the monk using a toxic bloodstream technique. The monk, trying to shield himself, puts Jinyu aside but fails to stop the attack due to poison from the insect. Realizing the stranger's intent to kill him, the monk understands that stealing Jinyu was a mere distraction. At that moment, Xiaofan arrives and is shocked by the unfolding events. Simultaneously, the strange man questions the monk, who refuses to comply. In response, the stranger attacks the monk with a dark spirit body, but the monk uses Buddha's hand to counter and destroy the attack. Enraged, the strange man starts gathering sword lightning energy to kill the monk. The monk creates a solid divine shield around himself, thwarting the attack. Recognizing his inability to defeat the powerful monk, the strange man retreats. The monk places Jinyu and Xiaofan, both unconscious, together. Realizing his impending death due to the insect's poison, the monk decides to pass on his power to Xiaofan so he can protect people in the future. The monk revives Xiaofan and proposes to share his techniques, asking for a promise from Xiaofan not to disclose these powers and to practice diligently. Xiaofan agrees to the terms. After giving Xiaofan a special pill, the monk instructs him to keep it safe. The monk then takes Xiaofan to teach him his techniques, emphasizing that understanding will take time. Before his death, the monk advises Xiaofan to seek out a person named Williams to learn more about his powers. The night passes. The next morning, Jinyu regains consciousness and finds Xiaofan unconscious. Upon waking him, Jinyu inquires about their location, but Xiaofan remains silent as per the monk's instructions. Both return to their village to discover its destruction. Xiaofan learns that his parents have died in faints. The following day, upon awakening, Xiaofan embraces Jinyu and breaks into tears. A messenger from the sect's master arrives, taking them to meet the master. Along the way, the guard dragon growls at Xiaofan due to the immense energy emanating from him. The messenger dismisses the dragon, and upon reaching the master, reports that the Qingyun Sect village has been completely destroyed, with only 3 survivors. The sect master questions Jinyu and Xiaofan about the village disaster. Jinyu claims ignorance due to being unconscious, and Xiaofan remains silent. The king, addressing the peak leaders, urges them to investigate the cause of the disaster and decides to take action for the children. The leader of the Dragon Peak expresses a desire to take Jinyu into his sect, believing he would make a good student. The leader of the Bamboo Peak, thinking Xiaofan is weak, attempts to force him into their sect. This angers the Bamboo Peak leader, but the sect master intervenes and decides that Jinyu will join the Dragon Peak, while Xiaofan will go to the Bamboo Peak. Upon hearing this, the leader of the Bamboo Peak has to comply. Now, I'd like to share some background information. The master mentioned is the leader of the Qingyun Sect, which comprises 6 peaks, including the Dragon Peak, Big Bamboo Peak, and Small Bamboo Peak. Each peak functions as a part of the sect, similar to a king in a country. Therefore, all the peaks are integral parts of the Qingyun Sect, not separate sects. Jinyu and Xiaofan feel saddened upon learning this fact, realizing they must adhere to the guidance of their respective peak leaders. Subsequently, when Xiaofan arrives at his designated peak, the students there begin to harass him, deeming him weak. However, Zoe, the daughter of the peak leader, intervenes and warns the students that she will report their behavior to her father if they continue bothering Xiaofan. The students, fearing consequences, back off. Shortly after, a senior student named Song Darren arrives and introduces Xiaofan to other students. Later, the peak leader and his wife join them, and they share a family-like dinner. During the meal, the peak leader entrusts the responsibility of Xiaofan's training and cultivation to Song. Once everyone is asleep, Xiaofan secretly practices the monk's techniques, as instructed by the monk to keep it confidential. The following day, when Xiaofan wakes up, Zoe introduces him to a dog named Ace, who obediently follows her commands. Song joins them, and Xiaofan, along with Zoe, heads to a bamboo forest for training. Upon reaching the bamboo forest, Zoe showcases her skills by effortlessly cutting some bamboo. However, Xiaofan struggles even with the thinnest bamboo. Observing this, Song explains that these are specific types of bamboo, requiring extensive practice to cut. Motivated by this insight, Xiaofan immerses himself in dedicated practice. Many years pass, and Xiaofan grows up, becoming adept at easily cutting bamboo. During this time, he diligently practices the monk's techniques. Zoe, now even more beautiful, continues to assist Xiaofan. In a practice session with other students from Bamboo Peak, Xiaofan faces attacks infused with spiritual power. Attempting to defend, Xiaofan's energy ball becomes unstable, leaving him disappointed. Song reassures him, expressing confidence in his eventual mastery of spiritual power stability. As students leave the forest, they advise Xiaofan to maintain a calm mind for stable spiritual energy. Motivated by their encouragement, Xiaofan stays for cultivation and quickly learns to stabilize his energy. Song and fellow students commend him. Unbeknownst to Xiaofan, the Bamboo Peak Master, secretly observing, is pleased with his progress. When questioned by Song and others, the Master claims to have arrived to inform Xiaofan that he need not cook due to poor culinary skills, intending to grant him more time for cultivation. Disheartened, Xiaofan receives motivation from fellow students. The following day, during Xiaofan's training, he faces constant stone throwing from a mischievous monkey. Annoyed, he discovers the culprit to be the monkey and expresses his frustration. Meanwhile, Jinyu, a top student in his peak, accepts a challenge from a fellow student. During the fight, it becomes evident that Jinyu is the favorite student of the peak leader, sparking jealousy among others. After defeating his opponent, a senior student advises Jinyu against fighting those not equal to him, as it could be dangerous for the other student. Simultaneously, Xiaofan and Zoe attempt to catch the teasing monkey by cooking food to lure it. However, the clever monkey manages to snatch the food and taunt them further. Zoe becomes angered and chases the mischievous monkey. Unfortunately, the monkey falls into a chasm, and without realizing it, Zoe follows the same path. After some time, Xiaofan, noticing the absence of both the monkey and Zoe's voices, approaches the chasm. To his dismay, he discovers that both Zoe and the monkey have fallen into the chasm. Determined, Xiaofan descends into the chasm. During his descent, Xiaofan senses movement in his pill but disregards it, prioritizing the search for the unconscious Zoe. However, he suddenly feels a surge of weakness. Undeterred, Xiaofan moves Zoe to the side, realizing that the monkey also needs help. As he approaches the monkey, the pill begins to enter a nearby pond. Xiaofan manages to catch the pill, but its force is overwhelming. Consequently, he tosses the monkey aside and enters the pond. Inside, he observes the pill attracting a stick with unique energy emanating from it. The pill attaches itself to the stick, and as Xiaofan holds it, a spiritual impact occurs, rendering him unconscious. Later, students from Bamboo Peak rescue Xiaofan, Zoe, and the monkey. Upon regaining consciousness, Xiaofan faces the scolding of the Bamboo Peak leader, who questions their actions. Xiaofan explains that they went to catch the monkey, which was bothering them. The Peak Master emphasizes the potential danger of their mistake. The Peak Master's wife intervenes, calming him down and taking him away. The monkey approaches Xiaofan, but Zoe arrives, causing the monkey to flee with the stick. Zoe commands her dog, Ace, to catch the monkey, but the monkey uses the stick to send Ace back. Upon witnessing Zoe's anger, Xiaofan intervenes to save the monkey. He expresses his desire to keep the monkey, and Zoe, upon hearing this, departs. Subsequently, Xiaofan names the monkey Gyro, a name that the monkey approves of. During the night, while everyone is asleep, Xiaofan engages in his cultivation, gradually improving in the monk's techniques. On the other side, Jinyu struggles to master a technique that allows cutting a large rock with a sword. Frustrated, Jinyu receives advice from the peak leader, who emphasizes the importance of remaining calm to learn the technique. Jinyu comprehends the advice and is then challenged by the peak leader to summon the dragon spirit using a dragon sword. Successfully summoning the dragon spirit impresses the sect master, who reveals a supreme technique involving thunder energy. Unfortunately, Jinyu falls unconscious upon witnessing the thunder. The following day, Xiaofan, in high spirits, crafts a bamboo flute for Zoe. However, Zoe attempts to steal an incomplete sword Xiaofan made, but he refuses to part with it. Despite their disagreement, they come close to each other, only to be interrupted by Song. He informs them about guests from the Dragon Peak and urges them to meet. Meanwhile, the guests are revealed to be Jinyu and a senior student who have come to discuss changes in the rules of an upcoming sect competition with Bamboo Peak's leader. Xiaofan and Zoe arrive at the meeting, where Xiaofan is delighted to see Jinyu. Following that, Xiaofan introduces Zoe to Jinyu. Simultaneously, the sect leader and his wife excuse themselves and retire. Meanwhile, the senior student initiates flirtation with Zoe, prompting Xiaofan to step out of the room to converse with Jinyu. Outside, Xiaofan inquires if Jinyu has discovered the identity of the attackers from their village. Jinyu responds negatively, stating, "No, but that terrifying night haunts my mind, and it causes me to fall unconscious at the sight of thunder." This revelation triggers memories of the village for Xiaofan as well. Subsequently, Jinyu and Xiaofan engage in sword fighting, aiming to relive their childhood memories. Jinyu displays superiority, weighing heavily on Xiaofan and ultimately knocking him down. However, the situation takes a turn when Zoe arrives and misinterprets the situation, believing Jinyu intends to harm Xiaofan. In response, Zoe confronts Jinyu, initiating a fight and capturing him with her magical The story continues as the senior student, whose name is James, saves Zoe from Jinyu's dragon spirit. That's when the Bamboo Peak leader arrives and tells Dragon Peak students that they are attacking his daughter on his peak. Upon hearing this, Xiaofan tries to explain everything to the peak leader, emphasizing that it's just a misunderstanding. However, the peak leader doesn't listen. Seeing this, James and Jinyu apologize to the peak leader. Despite their apologies, the peak master leaves. Afterward, James apologizes to Zoe again and gives her a beautiful pearl. Now Xiaofan is sad to see Zoe and James talking like this. Seeing Xiaofan's sadness, Jinyu tells Xiaofan that he is getting jealous of James and Zoe's closeness. Xiaofan denies it, but Jinyu has already understood that Xiaofan has feelings for Zoe. Therefore, Jinyu starts teasing Xiaofan. Later, Jinyu informs Xiaofan that the all-peak fighting competition is going to take place in a few days, occurring once every 60 years. Jinyu is excited about the competition, and Xiaofan agrees. Now, Jinyu and James go back to their peak. While leaving, Jinyu says to Xiaofan, "See you in the peak competition." Zoe enters Xiaofan's room at night and gives him a paper on which the mystical highest stream technique is mentioned. Seeing this, Xiaofan tells Zoe that it is the secret technique of their peak, meant to remain with the master. Xiaofan expresses concern that if the master finds out, he will be angry. Zoe reassures him that the peak master won't find out, so Xiaofan should learn the technique silently to avoid shame in the future. Xiaofan keeps the technique paper. After that, Zoe starts talking about James, mentioning that he is very good. This makes Xiaofan sad, and Zoe leaves his room. Subsequently, Xiaofan starts learning the technique and practicing it outside. In a short time, he masters the technique, enabling him to attack spiritual balls from a distance. Pleased with his progress, Xiaofan hears a sound from the story. Upon investigation, he discovers that one of the seniors of his peak has returned, who left many years ago in search of his magical weapon. The senior shows Xiaofan his magical weapon, a golden divine dice, and confidently states that he will win the all-peak competition with its help. Hearing this, Xiaofan becomes sad, thinking he won't be able to perform well in the competition. In response, the senior motivates Xiaofan. On the other side, we see Jinyu working hard to win this all-peak competition. The peak master had high hopes for Jinyu to emerge victorious, but other students of the peak didn't like this decision because the peak leader had given the peak dragon sword to Jinyu. Here, we observe the master of the pure sect receiving a secret message that angers him. He goes to the memorial stands of his ancestors, expressing concern about the increasing evil forces in the world affecting their sect. Next, we see Big Bamboo Peak students and the peak master fully prepared to participate in the all-peak competition, each student armed with their weapons. Xiaofan initially has a stick, considered useless by others. Zoe gives one of her swords to Xiaofan. Everyone leaves for the all-peak competition area, where many peak students are already present. Suddenly, a student from Small Bamboo's peak arrives, stunning everyone with her beauty. All students start talking to each other, and meanwhile, all peak masters arrange a meeting. The sect master informs the peak masters that he received news about the current weakness of the blood refining hall. He proposes sending the competition winners to confirm this news, and if true, eliminate the blood refining hall. Additionally, he plans to seek help from Tianyan Temple. All peak leaders agree to this proposal. On the other side, we see Song, to whom a girl from another peak comes, and Song starts blushing because he likes that girl. Upon seeing this, all the other students of Bamboo Peak start making fun of Song. Then, students from Dragon's Peak arrive, and James sees Zoe coming near her to start a conversation. Zoe, too, is blushing. The girl from the other sect takes Zoe with her to show something. Meanwhile, Jinyu approaches Xiaofan, expressing excitement about the competition. Xiaofan agrees. Later, a guy named Seng from Wind Peak comes to Xiaofan and asks, "Where did you get this third-eye monkey from?" Xiaofan doesn't understand, so Seng explains that the third-eye monkey is a spirit beast. All peak masters and sect masters then arrive. The master welcomes all the students, and a sacrificial sword ceremony takes place for the students' welfare, making them happy. Xiaofan's stick shines briefly, and the palace's guard dragon arrives due to sensing a dark aura. However, the master sends him back. The leader of Dragon's Peak informs the students that the winner will receive a hexagonal mirror that can block any attack, provided the person has enough spiritual power. Students are informed about their fight sequence through numbered balls from 1 to 64, chosen randomly. Xiaofan draws number 1 and is set to fight the student with number 64, who fails to show up, making Xiaofan win without a fight. The Bamboo Peak leader is pleased. As students continue to fight, most students from Big Bamboo Peaks are losing. The announcement of the fight between Zoe and a student from Sun Peak occurs. The Sun Peak student attacks Zoe with stones, causing her difficulties in the fight. Meanwhile, Xiaofan, focused on the fight, is approached again by Sang, who asks if Xiaofan can exchange his monkey for a treasure. Xiaofan declines, determined to watch Zoe's fight. The Sun Peak student catches Zoe with his stones, prompting Xiaofan to feel the need to help her. Suddenly, Xiaofan's stick activates automatically, breaking the stones with its dark aura. The Sun Peak student is confused, and Zoe takes advantage, continuously attacking him. On this side, Sang comes to Xiaofan again. He gives him a book and tells him that it is the Book of Secret Techniques. Upon hearing this, Xiaofan opens the book but discovers that it contains pictures of 2 girls. Embarrassed, Xiaofan hides the book. Zoe arrives and scolds him for not watching her fight. Meanwhile, the fight of Small Bamboo Peak's girl, Rossi, is announced. Everyone is excited to watch Rossi's fight, and Xiaofan is shocked by Rossi's beauty. Rossi and her Dragon Peak opponent enter the arena. The opponent tries to attack Rossi quickly, but he fails to touch her. He creates ice crystals to hinder Rossi's movement, but she breaks them and easily defeats him with her sword. All students, including Xiaofan, are shocked. After all the fights, the top 32 students are selected for the next day's matches. Xiaofan sees Zoe and James at night while walking, and he doesn't feel good. This affects Xiaofan's focus on his next day's fight. During his fight, Xiaofan's opponent attacks and breaks his sword. Xiaofan takes out his magical stick, and the opponent mocks him. Xiaofan retaliates, pushing the opponent back. The opponent realizes Xiaofan's martial arts skills and prepares a special attack. However, Xiaofan's eyes turn red, and a red aura surrounds him, quickly defeating the opponent. Xiaofan reaches the top 16, but falls unconscious after the fight. In the evening, the Bamboo Peak leader praises Xiaofan for the first time, making Xiaofan happy. The next day, Xiaofan enters the arena for his fight, and students comment on his supposedly bad spiritual flow. Determined to prove himself, Xiaofan faces his opponent, who launches fire attacks, injuring Xiaofan. Undeterred, Xiaofan stands up again. Meanwhile, Zoe and Rossi have a fight in another arena. Zoe is distracted by thoughts of James, allowing Rossi to defeat her. The leader of Big Bamboo Peak brings Xiaofan, who has won his match, to watch Zoe's fight. Xiaofan falls unconscious due to his injuries. At night, the Bamboo Peak leader discovers Zoe's feelings for James and becomes angry. Xiaofan regains consciousness and goes outside, finding Zoe sad because her father scolded her for the affair. The next day, Xiaofan has a match with Rossi, feeling sad as Zoe is not there to watch. Rossi uses her spiritual power to knock Xiaofan down repeatedly. Xiaofan, determined, stands up each time. Eventually, Rossi injures Xiaofan, causing him to bleed. Xiaofan stands up again, and a red aura surrounds him, allowing him to block Rossi's attacks easily. Rossi recalls a dangerous technique taught by her peak master and prepares it. Xiaofan, missing Zoe, gets angry but decides not to feel jealous if she is happy with James. He returns to normal and drops his stick. Rossi, however, launches her prepared attack, severely injuring Xiaofan. Rossi wins the match and reaches the final, confused about why Xiaofan left his stick suddenly. The leader of Dragon Peak informs the sect master that Xiaofan's weapon seems to be a dark weapon made from blood purification. The sect master decides to discuss this matter with the leader of Big Bamboo Peak. Xiaofan, still safe after Rossi's attack, overhears other students discussing his weapon as a dark tool used by Demon, making him nervous. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.